Breaking news.
That breaking news is word from Eastminster Presbyterian Church in Wichita that a third-party investigation found that a former church minister sexually abused nearly 24 boys. In a media release today, the church says allegations were brought against former director of student ministries, Bodie Weiss, last July. He was accused of sexually abusing boys within his youth group during the 1990s and early 2000s. In response, the church hired a third party called Fact Finding Ministry to investigate. The church got the final report last month, which found a total of 23 victims. The church says, quote, "We lament all that happened during Weiss's tenure, and we pray for those who were and are affected by this abuse." Eastminster is holding a service of repentance, lament, and healing Sunday, June 22nd at 4 o'clock. Church members can request access to the report after that Eastminster gathering. Eastminster does say it's reimbursing the victims and the affected witnesses for their counseling costs. And we did just look at Weiss's obituary. He passed away in 2020.